This is the mountain's shadow. In the heart of the Scottish Highlands, the jagged peaks of the Cairngorms Mountains stand like ancient sentinels cloaked in mist and legend. Among them, Ben Macdui, Scotland's second highest mountain, beckons adventurers with its wild allure. But for every breathtaking vista, there's a whisper of something sinister lurking in the mist. A chill tale that sends shivers down the spine, even in the warmth of summer. Granite cliffs, swirling fog, a sea of heather, and the haunting cry of the wind-weaving tales of a bygone era. Here amidst the sprawling wilderness, time seems to stand still. As I stood at the foot of this majestic giant, I couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding creep up on me. The wind, it seemed, carried more than just the scent of heather and damp earth. It brought with it echoes of a story that has chilled mountaineers to the bone for generations. As I began my ascent, each step echoing my heartbeat, the forest grew denser, the light dimmer, and the air colder. And then it happened. Emerging from a particularly thick patch of trees, I found myself in a small clearing, and what I saw both startled and unnerved me. There in front of me were a series of deep, large footprints, as if made by some enormous creature. I stared at them, trying to comprehend what they could mean. Were they some bizarre geological quirk, or a sign of something more sinister lurking in these parts? My journey continued into the gathering gloom, the fading light casting long, ominous shadows around me. As twilight deepened, the mountain unveiled its true character. The bracken and heather that had carpeted the lower slopes gave way to a stark, rugged landscape of bare rock and gnarled trees. A biting wind whipped across the barren terrain, sending a shiver down my spine. The silence was deafening, broken only by the mournful cry of a lone bird circling overhead. Then in the distance, above the crashing waves of the Atlantic, I heard it, a low, guttural sound that seemed to shake the very foundations of the mountain. Fear tightened its grip on me. Was it an animal, a human, or something else entirely? With each gust of wind, the sound grew louder, closer, until it was a tangible presence looming in the gathering darkness. And then I saw it. Emerging from the swirling mists of the mountaintop, a dark shape seemed to glide effortlessly over the rocky terrain. Tall and gaunt, it moved with an eerie grace that sent chills down my spine. For a moment, our eyes met, and in that instant, I felt a primal fear grip me, paralyzing me with terror. It was a creature out of legend, a specter of the mountain's lore, and I, a mere mortal, caught in its haunting gaze. But before I could react, it vanished as swiftly as it had appeared, melting back into the swirling mist. My heart pounded in my chest, echoing the relentless beat of the waves below. I stood frozen, torn between the urge to flee and the morbid curiosity that held me captive. Now the legend of Ben Macdui's haunting shadow is one that has persisted for centuries, and it's a story that doesn't just captivate, it chills to the core. The mountain itself stands as an imposing figure, its peak shrouded in mist and mystery, its slopes hiding secrets as old as time. It's a place where reality blurs, and the boundaries between the natural and the supernatural seem to vanish. The legend speaks of a hiker named Hamish, a man known for his resilience and his love for the mountains. He set out one day with 4 loyal dogs, eager to conquer the challenging terrain of Ben Macdui. But as he ascended the mountain, the weather took a sinister turn. Storms lashed out, winds howled, and visibility dropped, shrouding the landscape in an impenetrable fog. Hamish and his dogs pressed on, battling the elements, but the fog grew thicker, the path ahead unclear. And then it happened. In the blink of an eye, one of the dogs vanished into the swirling mists. They searched for it, calling out into the deafening roar of the storm, but there was no reply. It was as if the dog had been swallowed by the mountain itself. Undeterred, Hamish continued his ascent with 3 dogs, hoping to reach a safe haven, but once again, disaster struck. Another dog disappeared, then another. And soon he was alone, not just in the face of the raging storm, but in the face of an inexplicable horror that lurked within the mountain's embrace. He descended, shaken and grief-stricken, carrying the weight of an inexplicable tragedy. This story has echoed through the ages, leaving hikers both intrigued and terrified. Some dismiss it as a cautionary tale, while others see it as a glimpse into the mountain's darker secrets. Then there's the story of Morag, a young woman who ventured onto the mountain seeking solace in its solitude. She wasn't prepared for what she encountered. On a clear summer's day, she found herself enveloped by a thick fog that seemed to have materialized out of nowhere. Just as the first tendrils of fear began to wrap around her heart, her faithful dog vanished from her side. She called out, her voice trembling with anxiety, but her dog didn't answer. Panic surged through her as she realized she was alone on a mountain that had turned treacherous in the blink of an eye. Like Hamish, she descended, haunted by the unsettling feeling that she was being watched, stalked by an unseen presence. These stories, passed down through generations of mountain folk, have woven a tapestry of fear around Ben Macdui. It's as if the mountain itself holds a dark secret close, waiting to ensnare those who dare to venture too far into its misty depths. Now, standing at the foot of this enigmatic mountain, I can't help but feel the weight of these legends pressing down on me. As I prepare to embark on my own journey into its heart, I know I'm not just exploring a natural wonder. I'm stepping into a realm where fact and folklore intertwine, where the rugged terrain hides mysteries that defy explanation. Today, I'm going to retrace the steps of those brave souls who have dared to challenge Ben Macdui's unforgiving slopes. Armed with nothing but my determination and a camera crew in tow, I'll navigate the treacherous paths, decipher the cryptic clues left behind by those who came before me, and confront the chilling legends head-on. As the mist rolls in and the temperature drops, I'll feel the icy fingers of fear creeping up my spine. Will I uncover the truth behind the haunting shadow cast by Ben Macdui? Or will the mountain's secrets remain shrouded in mist, forever echoing in the wind? Join me on this journey, and let's unravel the enigma together. We drove up Glenmore and parked near the start of the track leading to the Lairg Grew, which cuts across the center of the Monadeliath Mountains. Our guidebook described it as a route that should take us around 4 hours. We looked forward to a full day on the hill and the chance to experience what many considered to be the finest mountain pass in Britain. It was only when we reached the end of the glen and started up the steep track that we realized the guidebook hadn't mentioned anything about height gain. Still, it was too late to turn back then, so we set off upwards, our 2 dogs bounding ahead of us. For the first hour, we climbed steadily through heather and over rocky outcrops. We kept stopping to admire the view back down the glen. But eventually, we had to turn our attention back to the task in hand. We still had a long way to go before reaching the relative comfort of the Lairg Grew. After 3 hours of hard climbing, we finally reached the col. We were delighted to find a bothy here, built in 1912 to mark the first ascent of the nearby Mila Bynid. And here, too, was the memorial cairn to Hamish and his dogs, which marked the spot where their tragedy occurred. We sat here for a few minutes, taking in the stunning views in all directions, but we knew that we would have to leave soon if we were to make it back down the mountain before dark. So we got up and started walking along the ridge that led towards our next objective, the Devil's Point. Halfway along the ridge, we stopped for a snack break. But it was here that the weather suddenly took a turn for the worse. Within seconds, the sky went from being cloudless to black with rain. Luckily, the rain soon cleared and the clouds lifted, revealing a sea of mist stretching out beneath us. Visibility dropped to almost zero, and we knew that we wouldn't be able to see much. As we walked the final section of the ridge to the Devil's Point, it was at this point that we noticed that our 2 dogs were acting strangely. They had been bounding ahead of us for most of the day, but now they were staying close behind. As we walked on, the ground became increasingly boggy, and the dogs refused to cross the wettest patches. Even though the ground was only ankle-deep water, the dogs refused to go any further. We tried coaxing them on with treats, but they just shook their heads and whined, sitting tight where they were. With no other option, we had to turn back and go the long way round, dropping down into the valley and crossing at a point where the river was shallower. This meant adding several miles to our walk, but we eventually made it back to the car late in the day, tired but relieved to have completed the hike. Despite the weather, we had enjoyed our day out, and we couldn't wait to do another hike in the area. Ben Macdui, with its misty peaks and haunting legends, had captured our imaginations, and we were keen to return. On our second visit, we decided to tackle the mountain itself. We parked at the Linn of Dee and set off up the track that leads towards the foot of the mountain. The weather was much kinder this time, and we made good progress up the glen. We passed Loch Achicon, a beautiful mountain loch ringed by a carpet of purple moorland, and soon afterwards, we reached the start of the climb proper. From here, we could see the path that we had to take, switchbacking up the very steep southern flank of Ben Macdui. We took a few minutes to admire the view back down the glen, knowing that we wouldn't get the chance to do so again until we were back down at the bottom. The ascent was tough, and after 3 hours of steady climbing, we stopped for a break. Here, too, we found a cairn marking the spot where a climber had died in 1976. His body had never been recovered, and we paused for a moment to pay our respects. As we continued up the mountain, the weather took a turn for the worse again, and we soon found ourselves enveloped by cloud. Visibility dropped to less than a meter, and we struggled to make any progress in the worsening conditions. Suddenly, the dogs stopped and started barking furiously in the direction of a nearby crag. We called them back, but they refused to come, and instead ran back and forth along the ridge, barking incessantly. We knew that we were close to the spot where Hamish and his dogs had become lost, and we couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. As the minutes passed and the dogs showed no signs of coming back, we realized that we had no choice but to turn back. It was then that I noticed the ground beneath our feet was covered in deep footprints. Large, deep footprints. When I reached the bothy, I told the warden about the footprints, and he checked them against similar ones that had been reported in the previous year. To my surprise, they matched. This discovery, coupled with the strange behavior of the dogs, convinced me that something strange was afoot. I knew that I had to do everything I could to uncover the truth behind the mysterious events that had unfolded during our hikes. And so I began my research, delving into the archives of local newspapers and speaking to those who had witnessed similar phenomena on their own hikes. Through their stories, I learned of a pervasive presence that seemed to lurk in the shadows of Ben Macdui. The locals spoke of a terrifying creature known as the Big Gray Man, said to be over 7 feet tall and cloaked in a long gray mist. They claimed that it preyed on unsuspecting hikers, vanishing into the mist and leaving behind only a sense of dread and despair. Determined to get to the bottom of this mystery, I scoured historical records, searching for any mention of the Big Gray Man. My search led me to ancient folklore and local legends, but I couldn't find any concrete evidence to support the existence of such a creature. Yet the stories of the missing dogs and the eerie presence I had felt on my hikes lingered in the back of my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Ben Macdui than met the eye. As I delved deeper into my investigation, I discovered that scientists had their own theories to explain the disappearances. They suggested that the dogs may have become disoriented in the thick fog, wandered off the beaten path and fallen victim to the harsh terrain and unpredictable wildlife. The idea that they may have simply gotten lost or been taken by predators offered a logical explanation for their sudden vanishings. However, it didn't fully account for the eyewitness accounts of a massive shadowy figure watching from the mountainous peak. I knew that I needed to experience Ben Macdui for myself, to stand in the shadow of its mist-covered peaks and try to unravel the enigma that lay at its heart. And so I returned to the mountain, armed with a camera crew to capture every twist and turn of my journey. We hiked through mist and bracken, following the winding path that led towards the mountain's core. As the light faded and the shadows lengthened, we felt the weight of the mountain's ancient presence pressing down on us. Suddenly, the mist parted for a moment, revealing a dark shape standing tall against the fading light. My heart skipped a beat. Could this be the elusive Big Gray Man? Before I could react, the mist closed in again, concealing whatever had been there. Disappointment washed over me. Had I truly seen the Big Gray Man, or was it just a figment of my imagination? I pressed on, determined to uncover the truth, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. As darkness fell, we turned back, descending the mountain with a renewed sense of urgency. The stories of the missing dogs echoed in my ears, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. At the edge of the woods we stopped, our breaths misting in the cold night air. The silence was deafening, broken only by the distant call of an owl. It was then that I noticed the footprints in the soft earth, large and deep. My blood ran cold. Had we stumbled upon the lair of the Big Gray Man? Fear clutched at my heart, squeezing the breath from my lungs. Suddenly, a twig snapped in the darkness behind us. I whirled around, my heart pounding, and saw nothing. Driven by a mixture of fear and morbid curiosity, I rushed home. I pored over maps, studied the terrain, and analyzed the accounts of those who had vanished.